All right. Why doesn't everybody get to your feet for just a minute and partner up with somebody? Go ahead and stand up with somebody. If you haven't met them yet, introduce yourself, tell them who you are, what you do. And now tell them the most important thing you've learned today so far for you that you're taking back with you. The most important thing so far today. Ivan. Can we reset my clock? Thanks. Okay, go ahead and sit down. Good job. High five them. Good job. My name is Monica Cornetti, and I'm here from Austin, Texas, and we're talking about low-tech gamification. Corporate trainers, people who are in performance improvement, we are a very enthusiastic bunch of people. I mean, there's a lot of subject matter experts, and we get really excited about the ability to have some kind of knowledge transfer to engage our employees and to give them new skills. Raise your hand. Put your hand in the air if you are in human resources, corporate training, performance improvement. Anyone sitting next to a person with their hand in the air, go ahead and look at them. They're a nice person, aren't they? They smiling. See, they're enthusiastic. If you started asking them about their training programs, they would just start gushing about how they can improve customer satisfaction and save time and save money. But if you start drilling down and start asking them some more difficult questions like, so what are your people doing differently now that they've been in training? What kind of results are you seeing from that training? And if you dig even further and ask them things like, so what's your data that shows a real measurable return on investment for those training programs? We start getting uncomfortable at that point. Because most training programs, the reality of most training programs is that this is what the audience looks like. It's happened to you, right? You have something you want to learn, and about 20 minutes into a session, you're thinking, oh my God, kill me now. Because if I have to sit here for another couple hours, I am dead anyhow. So just put me out of my misery. The reality is most corporate training is missing the mark because it's dry, boring, and dull. Very passive type of learning. And then we as corporate trainers or instructional designers, we started seeing a few years back this word gamification. And we learned that it could make boring activities more fun by making them more game-like. And we heard that there were platforms that we could use to put our training on that would actually do like the points and the badges and the leaderboards and have competition and collaboration and chance. And oh my gosh, all of a sudden we're like those little kids pressed up with their face against the candy store window, almost drooling, thinking, ooh, that looks so good, I want one of those. And I want one of those, that looks so good, oh, I want one of those. And my proposal to you is just because you can doesn't mean you should. Look at the person sitting next to you and say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean you should. I'm certified as a small business development specialist by the SBA, so as a counselor, I've often seen clients bring in interesting ideas For example, the gentleman who got the patent on the motorized ice cream holder. Cool, huh? So you have this motorized ice cream cone, you put your ice cream in it, you turn it on, and all you got to do is stand there and do this. You don't have to do anything. The man who submitted the patent, the reason he did it is because the little children's tongues get tired when they're licking their ice cream cones. Their tongues get tired. What if we come to and we can't even lick our own ice cream cones anymore? Well, what does that say about us as a society? All right, but we'll give them a break because they're little kids. I'll cut them a break there. This one I like even better. This is an electronic beer pager. So you've been there, right? Barbecue, backyard party, and you're drinking your beer, and somebody says, hey, come on over, let's play some horseshoes. So you set down your beer, and then you spend the rest of the afternoon trying to find that beer. But with the electronic beer pager, you can put your beer on this contraption, and now you got a little remote. So when you set your beer down, now for the rest of the afternoon, you're not just looking for your beer, you're looking for the little remote to make it work. Don't know that made it better for us. The idea here is that just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Instead, I have a proposal that, let me go back. When you look at instructional design, there's an organization called the Chapman Alliance that has done research on what it costs per contact hour of training. So for each contact hour of training, they did a survey for different design companies and different corporations, and what they found that for instructor-led training, per contact hour, the cost is just under $6,000. It's about $5,900. If we want to take it up to what they call level 3 training, which is where we're getting into the gamification, we've got alternative realities, avatars, gaming involved, competition. That level 3 training per contact hour on average costs $50,000 per hour of contact training. We're talking $6,000 for instructor-led, $50,000 for level 3. And then we add on the infamous statistic that we'll have an 80% fail rate. Everybody knows that Gartner research, right? By what year is 80% going to fail? This year, right? 2014. So with looking at the cost of designing the training and the chance that it has an 80% failure rate, I'm going back to just because you can doesn't mean that you should. I mean, I don't know that I have the cojones to go into a CEO or CFO and start talking to them about gamification, what it's going to cost to develop it. And when they say, oh my gosh, that sounds great, so what's that look like cost-wise? Well, if we want to do the full effects, it's just $50,000, and so how many hours are we developing? And oh yeah, by the way, it has an 80% chance of failure. I don't want to be that person. Instead, I have another strategy that I think you can use that will be very effective for you. I want you to use a tried and true business model. It has been proven to work time and time again. And if you want to add gamification to your performance improvement, corporate training, training and development programs, then I suggest you use the model that you learned about in middle school. Well, goodness, I'm sorry. In your middle school health class. Were you paying attention? You learned about that person who lurks around the school, right? They're looking to lure you in with a little sample. And once you try that sample and you like it, you go back and you say, hey, I like that. I'd like some more. They say, sure, we can give you more. It'll cost you a little bit this time. The theory is once they get started, they won't stop. When I use low-tech gamification, I want to create an addict. I want to show you how well gamification can work, that with our low-tech training, even though it doesn't have the bells and whistles, it works, and you come back and you say, well, that was fun. Can we add a little bit of sizzle to it? I say, yeah, we can add sizzle. It'll just cost you a little bit more this time. And then that works, and we can show a measurable ROI on it, and they come back wanting more. They say, can we do more? Is there more that we can add to this? Could we do like avatars and alternate reality? Of course we can. It'll cost you a little bit more this time, though. By the time we're done, my idea is that I own you, right? We have them hooked because we've used a strategy that works. My proposal to you is to use your low-tech gamification to develop your training and get them so hooked that they're buying into it and they want more. Any of you who raised your hands that you're in human resource or performance and development, you know that they are not just looking to just hand you dollars on a regular basis. Usually what happens is they give you a budget to start with, and then they cut it by about 75% before it's all over with. So what we want to do is follow a strategy that will work for you. I want to give you some examples of training that I have, curriculum I've designed, pure low tech. And I'm going to give you the secrets and the strategies that I've used, and as I'm doing it, because these are specific topics related, I still want you to think about, okay, she's talking about, for example, on this first slide, I'm talking about payroll. I don't have any payroll that we have to develop skills in, but I do have this. So how might I use that? For this client, they are a company based out of Detroit, Michigan. They offer the back office resources to organizations. So they handle all your back office. A couple years ago, they purchased a payroll company, and so they added payroll administration to their offerings. They needed to educate not only their employees, but also all their agents who are out there helping to sell their products. And so they had an attorney write a program on payroll administration. 6-hour class on payroll administration and payroll law. I'm thinking that goes in the kill me now class, don't you? Kill me now, 6 hours of this. So as I sat through, I went to observe the class that the attorney had written. You know, I'm sitting there listening, and I'm learning that if I were a CPP, I'd learn that FLSA has to do with your EFTs, but your FMLA has to do with protecting your family, and then there's EINs and EECC, and after a couple hours of that alphabet soup, I was just sitting there thinking, OMG and WTF. I mean, who's going to remember any of this? How is this relevant? And so what I proposed to them and what we did was I said, I want to design an experience, not just give information. So we took the idea of payroll law and wrapped it in a story. If you're going to do low-tech training design, my number one you gotta write some kind of epic adventure. Draft a storyline that you can design that entire training around. So Snow White's the new human resource manager at the mine, and she's got a whole crew of people that she has to administer the payroll with. And we start learning about each of the characters. I'm doing a hands-on lab right here at 4:30, and we'll learn more about crafting your story and how you can do it. And so in the hands-on lab, in the game the system, you'll learn, for example, about Grumpy. Everybody's got a Grumpy that you've worked with at one time, don't you? That guy that no matter what idea you had, it wasn't gonna work. Oh, this is a disaster. Oh, they're never gonna go for it. Oh, we shouldn't go there. Everybody knows Grumpy. So, but what we don't know until we start learning about payroll and garnishment laws, the reason why Grumpy's so grumpy. If you were on your third marriage and paying child support and all you were allowed to take home was the minimum amount that I'm allowed to still pay you legally, you'd be grumpy too. Then we got Dopey Dan. Dopey Dan's the boss's son. We don't really sure what he does, but we're pretty sure he's misclassified. He's exempt right now. He probably shouldn't be. My favorite in the creating experiences instead of just giving information was the Woodsman. Is the Woodsman an independent contractor or an employee of the Queen? You know, there's a 20-point question that you have to ask yourself. I mean, does he do this for other queens? She was pretty explicit in the directions. So what we're doing is helping to give you a hook. Anytime you're learning something new, it helps you to remember it if you hook it to something else you already know. Knowing that there's a 20-point checklist that the IRS has for whether this is an independent contractor or an employee is important in payroll law because that's one of the primary areas that the IRS has cracked down on. You don't have to know what each of the 20 points are, but you do need to know that they exist. This one is one of my favorite. Okay, so this is for a major Uber company. I mean, like they have more money than God, but they're still only willing to put this much towards training and development. They develop those big cranes. They build those big cranes that, for example, go on oil rigs, like the offshore oil rigs, and so each one of those rigs has 3 cranes. And what they need is what's called QMTs, Qualified Maintenance Technicians, for each one of these, the rigs, or if they're on land for those cranes. And unfortunately, they do have the knowledge, but it's in one gentleman's head, the man who's been delivering this training for the past 30 years. Nothing's written down. It's not reproducible, it's not scalable, and so they wanted to be able to make it more interesting and make it scalable. So when we're looking at developing that training, I mean, after sitting through 2 mind-numbing, coma-inducing days of training to become a QMT, I was like, we need to just give them something more that they can actually see, touch, and feel to understand the consequences of their choices. And to honor the gentleman who has all this knowledge, I created this JD character. JD leads them through, he's the ambassador that walks them through the entire training and gives them places where they need to stop. He's got a stop sign, he's got a magnifying glass when they need to inspect more, because I did want to respect and give honor to his knowledge. But when we're talking about crane loads and fail loads and what it takes, at which point will a crane fail, when you look at just charts and calculations, if you need to know that on the spot, on the rig, or on the field, it's not going to come back to you quickly unless I can hook it to something you already know. So what if we put a little erector set right there and we talk about peaches and avocados? Well, we can lift a peach, but we can't lift an avocado. And I don't want to just quiz you then, because what most training looks like in corporate America today is I give you information, I give you more information, I give you more information, then I quiz you. Then I go back and I give you information, I give you more information, I give you more information, and then I quiz you. And when we're looking at how much of that is actually retained, if you need this instantaneously on the spot, short, quick decisions on the field, people have to understand what they're really calculating and what the consequences of those calculations are. So instead of JD preaching at them in the feedback, when he gives feedback, he just shows the results of their choice. I'm going to put a fail video up. I lost my fail video. Let's try it again. Good, thanks. Fortunately, there's no sound because there was a little bit of cussing going on in just a sec. If you miscalculate the point at which the crane will fail, it's not just like, oh, let's go back and try that one again. We're talking about real consequences, and the impact of that has to be evident when in the classroom, because up until this point, they haven't had any hands-on experience. Totally switching gear. This one's a lot of fun. This ain't your grandma's grammar. The grammar that we use in business today is not the grammar we learned in elementary school. We don't know what's correct. You know, to say, to boldly go where no man has gone before isn't correct grammar. It's a split infinitive. Correct would be to say, to go boldly where no man has gone before. Well, that's just wimpy. I think to boldly go is much more effective, but is it okay to use that? So in Grandma's Grammar, this ain't your grandma's grammar, it's really about taking, again, another topic that's considered a little boring and dry and adding the game mechanics and the game elements that will keep them involved. We've got the teams, we've got trading. They get everything from chocolate chip cookies to sloppy grandma kisses and bosses points that they can trade. But it's all about engaging them in something that otherwise they'd be disengaged from it. And the last example, okay, lost a slide, but that's all right. The last example, I don't know if you've heard of the Kevin Costner movie called Draft Day. It came out earlier this spring. Last fall, I was approached by a multi-international company and to work with their North American division on diversity and inclusion training. And when you look at their North American division, although they have taught and trained on diversity and inclusion, and they talk about it all the time, the leadership in the North American division is middle-aged white men. That's what it is. So if we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion, what does that really look like? And as she was talking with me about what her needs were and what she was wanting, I'm thinking, okay, middle-aged white men. And in the fall, I don't know if you read those numbers about how much money is lost by corporate America because people are engaged in fantasy football. You ever read those stats? I was thinking, well, let's just create them a team. Let's make them managers of a team where they have players to pick from, they have salary caps, they have limited time, they have draft seed picks, and they have to pick their team who's going to be their team at this organization. And then we'll go through the season. So we go through draft day, which is high pressure. If you've ever seen like the movie or when they're doing the drafts, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And what you find out is what you think you're going to get is not always what you get. So we go through preseason, then we go through regular season, then we go to postseason. But the whole idea is if we're going to truly talk about diversity and inclusion, then we need to be diverse. And are we really doing that kind of hiring? So when you're looking at the low-tech gamification, the four major elements are having a story, making sure that you have activities that the people really are learning, not just giving them information, having good game mechanics that motivate your players, and then, of course, staying player-centric. Player-centric. Who's playing the game? Is this going to interest them? Is this something that's going to stir that competition and collaboration for them to get engaged? So, when you look at typical corporate training, the thing that we forget as curriculum designers or human resource professionals is that we are not being paid to deliver information. We've been paid for performance improvement. You're not being paid to deliver information. You are being paid, it's your job to make sure that there is some kind of change. Let me just ask you generally in here, for those of you in here, when you go to work in the morning, for the most part, I know some days we miss it, but whatever your job is, whatever it looks like, when you go to work in the morning, do you give it the best that you've got? If you agree with that, I want you to raise your hand as high as you can. Okay, now raise your hand a little higher. Oh, didn't I ask you to raise your hand as high as you could the first time? I think I did. But oftentimes that's where we are. We're like, well, this is all the best I can do. That's all the money you've given me. It's the way it is. It's just a dry topic. Some things just don't have the pop and sizzle that other topics have. My proposal to you is that you can take those topics, whether it's soft skills or hard skills, and start adding the gamification elements, knowing what you're trying to achieve in small increments so that you can take it back and show measurable results. Here's the formula to get them hooked. If you want low-tech gamification to be your gateway drug, what you want to start with is a training program that's already been developed. Those costs are already sunk. You're already delivering that training. What are you not getting from that training right now that you need to get? Why is it not working? And how will gamification help you do that? Put together then your learning activities and your game mechanics wrapped into some kind of epic quest so that your people will be engaged with the training. Right away, start to test. As you start to roll this out, you want to iterate it. You want to divide it into two groups. Where are you seeing results and where are no results happening? And you want to start talking to those people right away about why aren't results happening or why are they happening, and make the changes you need to make as quickly as you need to make them. Then what I want you to do is show that you have been able to make an improvement. I want you to make it measurable and then go prepared with numbers to talk to your CEO or CFO. To a CT member, there is nothing more valuable to them than their time. So don't waste it talking about the cool pop and sizzle of gamification unless you can show them measured data, return on investment. And here's where it gets so fun. Is that the value you add from doing that low-tech gamification will pay back in. So now they start coming to you and say, well, you know, I've been looking out there and this gamification's a really cool thing. We should add a little pop and sizzle. We can do that. It'll take what? Little bit of money. But each time what you're doing is making sure that you have that measurable return on investment so that you can then add value that will take you to the next level. I know because my message is low-tech gamification, people think that I'm against technology. And I am not against technology. I love technology. What I do know is that for most training and development departments, it's not seen as an area where most organizations want to invest their dollars. So for you to get the money that you need to do this kind of technology that you want to add to your training programs, you're going to have to show them more than the sizzle. The sizzle is not what's going to sell this. You're going to have to sell them the facts. Does this make sense? Look at the person sitting next to you and say, this makes sense. Makes sense. All right, go ahead, stand up. Stand up. Look at the person just standing next to you if you're in a group and just say, man, I love low-tech gamification. I love this. I love this. And tell them, you should too. You should tell them that. You should too. You should too. All right. Now let's go get them hooked. High five, everybody. Go ahead. Thanks so much. I'll see you at 4:30 at the Hands-On Lab. Thank you.